Hello and welcome to Between the Lions, a podcast for Lions by Lions, hosted by the Lions Club of Beaumaris. My guest today is the fabulous Pat Mills. Past District Governor Pat Mills hardly needs any introduction. She's been serving the community through Lions for the last 14 years. Her home club is Box Hill, and she served in almost every role at club, district and national level. She held the position of district governor in 2017-2018. She has a number of prestigious awards: the Follow Your Dream Foundation Australian Fellowship, the Melvin Jones Fellowship, the Australian Lions Foundation Ian Stockdale Humanitarian Award, and the James D. Richardson Award. At the moment, Pat is the National Diabetes Coordinator, and she's joined us today to talk about diabetes, World Diabetes Day, and the Lions Project Lap the Map. Welcome, Pat.
Thank you very much, Megan. It's a pleasure to be here.
Perhaps you can tell me why Lions have decided to adopt diabetes as a cause, and how did you get involved?
Lions decided that they would have 5 pillars of looking after the community, which would include environment, vision, childhood cancer, sight and diabetes. But diabetes has been something that Lions have been interested in and have been working in for many, many years. My background is in nursing. I just find that diabetes is something that I'm really, really interested in, particularly with the youth in diabetes. One of the things that, of course, with diabetes that we're very, very keen about is healthy eating and healthy exercise.
I believe you managed to squash in a diabetes camp in between lockdowns this year.
We did. We were very, very fortunate. We had a type 1 diabetes camp in March at Queenscliff. It was an exceptionally successful camp for 20 young people between 15 and 18, and it was really, really successful. And because of the success of this, we are actually planning 3 more camps, one in Queensland in April next year. We've got another one in Newcastle area in May, and we've also got another one down in Queenscliff in July. It was a very, very well received, and the teenagers had a lot of fun, learnt a lot, and they are all actually still in contact with each other.
Pat, maybe you can explain, just for someone who's a bit ignorant like me, I would have thought that especially teenagers, they would be getting all the help and support they needed from their family, friends and doctor. Why the camp? What was its aim?
The camp is for what we call a transition, the children who are transitioning out of the paediatric care into the adult care. So what happens then when they leave their paediatrician, when they leave their doctors that they normally have, their diabetes educators they normally have, they have to move off into the adult world, if you like. So sometimes they're a little bit lost, sometimes they miss the contact that they've had for many, many years. A lot of them have had them for many, many years. Some of them are just actually starting, they're newly diagnosed, and then they have to suddenly change again. So they call these transition, and they're teenagers, they're 15 to 18-year-olds. So we did a lot of work with them. We had mentors that came along with them as well. We had a camp mum who was a type 1 diabetic herself. She was in her late 20s and 30s, and she was able to help the children transition, if you like, some of the transition, if you like, at the camp. We did a lot of work with mental health as well. We had some that we had to work with mental health. We had, there's lots of things that the kids wanted to know about. And one of the things that they wanted to know about was, how do I handle my parents? And it's a case of them wanting to be independent. Although they need mum and dad looking after them a little bit, they wanted to be independent as well. So we taught them, there was a few little things that we've taught them, but they've gone on with that, and we've heard back from several of them who are delighted, and the parents, of course, are really delighted with what we were able to do in that week. So it's been an absolute joy to work with those children and those families, and I think that the benefit that the families and the children got out of this camp is immeasurable.
Oh, wonderful. And now, Pat, could you explain the difference between type 1 and type 2 diabetes?
Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease, and it's thought to be caused by a complex mixture of both genetic and environmental factors, not by an unhealthy diet or obesity, whereas type 2 is generally brought on by lifestyle factors, not always, but generally brought on by lifestyle. And it's a case of the pancreas that's shutting down, particularly with the type 1s. And with the type 2s, sometimes people can be assisted with diet and exercise, and it can be controlled and monitored much, much better. So don't always, with type 2, they don't always need insulin. They can have tablets, but it's also monitored and guided by exercise and nutrition, whereas type 1s need to have insulin all the time.
And now, given how many people stand to get diabetes in the future, I mean, those numbers that I read were shocking, over 1,000 a day being diagnosed with diabetes. What are the top 3 things you think people can do to help prevent diabetes, onset of diabetes?
With type 1, it's no way that you can prevent the onset of type 1. But with type 2, it's weight, and not necessarily weight all the time either. It's healthy eating, exercise, and just taking good care of ourselves, I think. And the big thing, I think, particularly in COVID, I think there's been a big issue with the medical profession where, because people weren't going to their doctors, there's people being missed, being diagnosed. And so I think that it's really, really important that if you feel that you've got an issue with diabetes, or you feel you've got excess thirst, or you're going to the toilet, passing urine a lot, it's really, really important to go to a doctor and have a check, because there are some people who have been missed, or because they haven't been to the doctors, or because they're having telehealth, of course, as well. And telehealth has been a big boon, a big bonus, but I think sometimes you miss out on actually seeing the doctor and having a talk with them.
Are there any myths you'd like to bust about diabetes?
One of the myths, and I actually almost made the mistake myself a moment ago, is you don't necessarily have to be overweight to have type 2 diabetes either. So it's a lifestyle factor. And I think we need to be sure that we're all exercising and in our nutrition is up to speed. And I think there are many, there's a magazine called Diabetes Living, which is an absolutely sensational magazine. And if anyone can get that, it gives you some wonderful ideas and some wonderful recipes and all of that sort of thing. It guides you through things. But I think that the myth that, if you've type 1, that you can be cured. You can't be cured with type 1. You need to have insulin all the time.
And I noticed when I went and had a look at the national diabetes map that the biggest burden of diabetes seems to be borne by the poorer, more disadvantaged communities.
Lower socioeconomic.
So what hints do you think you could give our Lions clubs? Because for some of us, we are clubs in very low prevalence areas, and other clubs are in very high prevalence areas. How can we help those clubs?
I think if we look at the 5 pillars of Lions, and hunger is one of the things in Lions that we deal with. One of my passions many years ago was to be able to get out. There are some people who don't know how to cook, who don't. So if we can get out there, one of the main things, if we can get out there and teach people how to actually cook nutritious, cheap meals. You don't have to go to the fast food. That's not the easiest or the quickest way. There's a myriad of things that you can do with mincemeat, isn't there? You can do all sorts of things. And I think really if Lions clubs were able to start cooking lessons in lower socioeconomic areas, go to the schools, see if you can start setting up some cooking lessons, or even go to community centres and see if we can start setting up, particularly for single parent families. I think that would be a really good thing. I think that's another passion of mine, to be able to get people to, sometimes they can cook but they can't bake, and there's all sorts of things. And I think sometimes we don't teach our young ones to cook properly. I think another thing that we could do is set up let's go to the supermarket and let's have somebody come with us. Let's set up with a dietitian to come with you, have a half a dozen people to come with you, take a few people around a supermarket together and just show them that the value of having fresh fruit and vegetables as compared to fast food or anything like that. And I think that sometimes just a walk around a supermarket is sometimes a really good thing, because sometimes people aren't aware of how you can economically feed a family.
I believe diabetes can also affect your eyesight. Is Lions doing anything in that area?
Yes, it does affect eyesight. There's a lot of things that diabetes does, but what Lions do within our sight pillar is we can do eyesight testing, and there is a machine that we can get to go into the schools particularly and do sight testing for children. But I think the big thing is that people have to be aware that you have to look after your feet, look after your eyes, and just make sure that, even if you get little bumps on your leg, just make sure if they're not healing, go and see a doctor, because you don't really understand why something is not healing. Be very, very careful when you're in the garden, for example, with the roses and all that sort of thing. Be careful of thorns and all of those sorts of things, I think. And if you get something like that happens and you think it's infected, by all means, please go to a doctor and get them to have a look at it, because you just never know. With the International Diabetes Federation, I've got some figures up here that are interesting. 463 million adults, which is 1 in 11, were living with diabetes in 2000. This is 2019, so these are the up-to-date figures that I've got at the moment. And this is expected to rise to 578 million by 2030. That is absolutely massive. And as you were saying before too, Megan, more than 3 in 4 people with diabetes live in low and middle income countries. 2/3 of the people living with diabetes in urban areas, and 3/4 of them are working age. That in itself is another absolutely fascinating fact. And also 1 in 5 people with diabetes are above 65 years old. There's a lot. The statistics sometimes are a bit mind-blowing, but I think sometimes those statistics are very, very important to keep in mind when we're talking about diabetes.
You were saying you have to be careful of your feet?
Yeah, sometimes podiatry, you need to go to a podiatrist and get your feet, because if you have ingrown toenails or anything like that, bad diabetics sometimes get what they call is peripheral neuropathy, and so the nerve endings in your toes actually disappear. And unfortunately, a lot of people have amputations. As a famous person who's just passed away recently in Melbourne, dear Bert Newton, he lost his leg due to peripheral neuropathy.
I knew that with leprosy you lost the feeling, the nerves damage caused you to have amputation because you didn't feel when you got hurt. And I didn't know that about diabetes.
Yes, it's a big thing. I had a nephew. Unfortunately, he passed away when he was 28, and he had actually had most of his toes removed.
So now World Diabetes Day on Sunday, the 14th of November, the Sunday coming up, we're marking the 100th anniversary of the discovery of insulin, which makes that a little bit special.
It's very special, and I've been sending things out to diabetes coordinators around Australia about that. Lions in Australia have been celebrating the World Diabetes Day recently with what we call Lap the Map, and we started this off in 2019, and we had some people involved in that, and we walked just on 15,000 kilometres around Australia. Lions clubs did that. But last year, I wonder if it was the COVID effect, but last year we did 199,000 kilometres around Australia last year, where clubs were doing that. So the circumference of Australia is 26,000 kilometres, and we go, okay, let's see if we can walk around Australia. But we certainly lapped the map last year, and it was really, really exciting. What I'm seeing this year is the same thing. It's going to be absolutely sensational. There are a lot of people doing lots of walks, and there are a lot of clubs doing actual virtual walks as well. Clubs and zones. My club, Box Hill, have been doing a virtual walk, and we've actually achieved 6,283 kilometres to date. And if we go from the east around Australia, we've got up to Nicholson in Queensland, up to near Cape York. But if we go the other way, we're over to Port Hedland as far as kilometres are concerned. But we've got the Chelsea Lions Club, the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Club, and Box Hill Club and the Autism Club are all putting in kilometres, and Owen Price in our club is collating all of those figures. So it's absolutely sensational. People are getting out there and they're walking, and they're doing, it's not only walking though, it's cycling, running, and we've also got some people doing a 24-hour treadmill competition.
Which clubs are involved in that?
That's some clubs in Western Australia are doing that.
That's a wonderful idea, yes.
And the other thing that we're doing with this is it's not necessarily a fundraising effort. It's all about being healthy and walking and being active. There's one club in Maryborough in Victoria, and they have got a cycling club who are doing cycling around a cycling track, if you like, and they're doing, I think it's $1 a lap that they're going to give us, and I think they might be able to raise about $5,000. So if anyone is raising money, or it's a donation or so much a kilometre, but if anybody is donating, that money, we're asking clubs to send that to their district treasurer, who will then forward it on to multiple districts. And that money is going to be used for the children's diabetes camps from now on.
Oh, wonderful. And we can put the dates of the diabetes camps in the bio at the end of the show. Can clubs sponsor those camps?
Absolutely, they can. Yes, they can absolutely sponsor those camps. And we'll be letting people know as to when those camps will be on. We'll be sending flyers out for those camps, and clubs can absolutely sponsor those camps. Absolutely not.
That's something really worthwhile.
And it's a part of the activities, and it's a part of something that can be reported onto My Lion. And you know, sometimes clubs do sort of think, well, what can we put onto My Lion? What can we do for diabetes? What can we do for hunger and all of those sort of things? And these are the sorts of things that we can introduce into My Lion. And I think it's very, very important that clubs that take it up and do it well. And all clubs are doing it. I'm delighted with the response from the clubs. It's been absolutely amazing.
So can we expect to see a lot of lions walking around on Sunday?
Absolutely, yes. There's lots of lions will be walking around parks. I know lots of parks are happening around parks. I know that lots of lions are then going to have a barbecue, and you know, of course, they're healthy sausages. You know, please remember they're healthy sausages.
They're healthy sausages. Yes.
And then my own club, we're doing 2 days in the Brickworks supermarket in Burwood. We'll have Christmas cakes there, but we've just got to remember that the cakes have got 50% fruit in them. But no, that's all good. We've got to have a bit of a laugh about this sometimes, don't we? So we're going to be doing a diabetes awareness in this, and Brickworks, it's a new supermarket, and they are a eco-friendly supermarket. We'll be there, and we're doing what they call the OSD risk form, which can tell you if you're in the risk category. We'll be getting people to fill those forms out, and if they're in the risk category, we'll be advising them to pop along and see their GP. So there's all sorts of things that we can do.
Oh, that's wonderful. Are there any other Lions resources that the clubs might not know about?
There's the Lions Australia Diabetes Foundation do have pamphlets that people can get. The OSD risk form, which is a D5 3-fold pamphlet that has lots of questions on it, and it can tell people whether they're not in the area where they are at risk or not. And that's just a simple, give people a pen and they can fill it out. And if they're in that risk area, they go and take that form along to their GP. And then they can go on to the Diabetes Australia, and you can get some resources, free resources, pamphlets and all of that sort of thing. So they're there for handouts if clubs want them. So people haven't got them, unfortunately. It's a little bit late to get them for this weekend, but if people are interested in having them, because we will be continuing Lap the Map. It's become very, very successful, and this will be an annual event every year on World Diabetes Day, which is November 14 every year.
So if people haven't got themselves organised and they're not walking on November the 14th, can they still do a Lap the Map event?
Yeah, we'd encourage that. You know, some areas find they can't do it necessarily on November the 14th because sometimes in farming communities it's harvest time. Sometimes in Queensland it depends on the weather, but I think at the moment it's a bit wet. I think it's wet in Queensland and New South Wales at the moment.
Even in Alice.
Yes, that's right. So I think people can do it anytime, absolutely not a problem. And people can do it anytime. But what I would really like people to do, if they are doing Lap the Map, if they please make sure that their kilometres and everything are sent to me so that I can put it on I want to put it on a database so that we can send it out and let everybody, send it out to all clubs and all districts to let everybody know exactly what we've been able to do.
Wonderful. I can actually put those details on the show notes as well. Is there anything else you would like to tell the clubs about World Diabetes Day or Lap the Map that we haven't covered?
I just want people to enjoy themselves, have a good time, mix with one another, tell everybody about diabetes, make sure that there is awareness out there, and let everybody know that we are doing type 1 camps for children 15 to 18. Let everybody know about that, and just be happy and have a good time and celebrate the fact that clubs in Victoria or in Australia, in actual fact, are doing a sensational job with diabetes awareness, and everybody is out there promoting it. I've been contacted today by a lady who's written a book about type 2 diabetes, and she has just heard about our Lap the Map and how wonderful it is that Lions are doing something like this. So there's lots of information out there. People can go onto the Type 1 Foundation and they can find things out about that, but I can give you all of those details as well. Megan, you can put up there. There's many, many myriads of things that people can find. There's the Danny Foundation. There's lots of places people can go to get more and more information. And of course, going onto the International Diabetes Federation website is an absolutely sensational way to go and get lots and lots of facts and figures. And if people would like to do talks and they want to do talks in their clubs or anything like that, the information is there for them to receive. Or just please contact me if there's anything anybody wanted to know.
Well, Pat, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
I hope the message gets out there, and I hope there are lots and lots of lions walking on Sunday.
I'm sure there will be, and I'm very excited for everybody to get out there.
I'm going to be out there walking. Thank you.
Thank you very much.